place on Earth has better weather.
This tropical update is sponsored by Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse.
Well, we went nearly a month without getting a tropical depression or a storm or hurricane in the Atlantic. We don't have a storm or a hurricane now. We do have a tropical depression, albeit a pretty weak one. The winds are 35 miles an hour. It's centered 590 miles to the east-southeast of Bermuda, and it is moving toward the east about 9 miles an hour. Now, lest anyone be worried about this, we don't think it's going to increase very much. We believe it's going to stay a depression, not get to a tropical storm, and in any case, it's not going to affect anybody in this part of the world. The circulation center at the surface is actually way here, far away from where these thick white clouds are, and that's because these clouds are moving faster than the storm is moving, so it's leaving the center exposed, as we say, and such a system isn't likely to increase very much. So this is a tropical depression, and we believe that that's about all that is going to come of it. Now, looking at the Atlantic, we have a big high pressure here centered now over Mexico, and it is really supporting this very powerful Hurricane Pauline we have off the Pacific coast. We're also seeing a little ridging in the upper atmosphere now in the western Gulf of Mexico, and sort of in response to that, we could say we have quite an array of showers all the way from southern Louisiana all the way down into the Bay of Campeche. So far, we're not seeing any sign of organization there. We doubt if we will, because the lowest pressure we see out there is down here in the Bay of Campeche, and that's only about 500 miles or so away from the hurricane. Out in the Atlantic, we still have a disturbance at low latitudes here, but these westerly winds here will preclude, we believe, any development there. Here we can see that system again, and even though we have quite a few showers there, some of them heavy, not likely to see any development there. Not likely to see any in the Caribbean either, because there we still have strong northwesterly winds. You can tell that by these cloud plumes that you see blowing off the shower and the thunderstorm tops. Now, as you mentioned a minute ago, here in the Gulf of Mexico, very heavy showers off southern Louisiana. Most of these off the Texas coast are offshore, except up here in the northeast coast from around the Galveston Bay area, some heavy showers. For the most part, the ones to the south are staying offshore of Mexico and not showing any signs of organization, although to be sure the pressure is fairly low there. It's about 1,008 millibars or so, and they have fairly strong north winds sustained about 25 miles per hour there at Veracruz all afternoon. But as we said, this area is only about 400 miles north of Hurricane Pauline, and here is Hurricane Pauline. Now, if there's any good news about this, it is that it has diminished some. It was up to 130 miles an hour. Now it is down to 120, but it hasn't moved very much. And whenever you have a storm like that that doesn't move, you've got to worry a little bit more about it, because that makes the eventual movement a little bit more uncertain. On the other hand, since it's stopped essentially and not expected to move very much for the next 12 hours, we're pretty confident it's not going to move up here real fast to the coast of Mexico, where they do have out hurricane warnings, by the way. From Punta Maldonado down to Tapachula, we have hurricane warnings, although the hurricane so far has been staying far enough off the coast so that they certainly aren't getting hurricane conditions. Now, what we're seeing here is that these deep reds kind of come and go a little bit. They faded out earlier this afternoon, and you'll notice that right around the center of circulation the last few hours, they've increased again. So this is still a very powerful hurricane indeed, and so folks along the coast of Mexico do need to be concerned about this and keep very close track of what's going on. Once it does come up here and begin to mix with land, of course, it will diminish pretty rapidly, but some extremely heavy rains are likely here. And since the terrain down there is such that the mountains come almost down to the seashore, it's subject to flooding from the kind of torrential rains that you would get with a hurricane, especially this hurricane. Here on the visible picture, we can still clearly see right there where the circulation center is, but you just see that counterclockwise rotation there, but you don't see very much of any movement of the system itself. Well, I don't know when we're ever going to get rid of Olaf here. Olaf was a tropical storm and then a depression, and then disappeared entirely for several days, and then reappeared out here farther west. And now it's kind of drifting off a little bit toward the east very slowly at about 8 miles an hour, but really not showing any signs of getting any better organized. In fact, it seems to weaken a bit. That's the tropics. Back to Jill.
Okay, thanks, John. Rain and wind continue to trouble parts of the world.
Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
10
time now for your tropical update. We'll take a look at what's going on in the Pacific and in the Atlantic. And we start out in the Atlantic with Tropical Depression 7. Not terribly impressive to us here on the satellite view. The latest coordinates have our depression centered at 28.7 north, 54.4 west. That puts the center about 670 miles east-southeast of Bermuda. Maximum sustained winds 35 miles per hour, and it's moving off to the east at 12 miles per hour. So again, moving away from the U.S. and from Bermuda, so that's some good news there. The satellite view, again, it's not terribly impressive here. The upper level winds are shearing it, and that is inhibiting any real development, and further development is not really expected. As a matter of fact, in the next couple of days it is expected to continue to sort of weaken. So we'll continue to watch it for you, but again, it is expected to move off eventually towards the east-northeast and accelerate. So while we'll continue to watch it, not terribly impressed with our tropical depression here. A look at the big picture, and there's really not a lot going on, tropically speaking, throughout the Atlantic. Pretty quiet conditions. It's been a rather quiet season all in all, with a few exceptions. So we, again, are watching our tropical depression, but the upper level winds just not favorable for development. Upper level winds not terribly favorable in the Caribbean. In the Gulf of Mexico, we have been watching an area of clouds and showers, rather widespread here. We'll talk more about that coming up. But again, as we head out through the Atlantic and into the Caribbean, just not a lot of interest tropically speaking. There's just not a lot going on, and again, those upper level winds really impeding any development here through the Caribbean. We do see a widespread area of cloudiness and some showers too that have been really extending from Louisiana back towards the Bay of Campeche. So we'll continue to watch this, although we would tend to think that with Pauline about 400 miles or so away from the convection in the Bay of Campeche, we would tend to think that that would inhibit any immediate development. So again, not terribly impressed right now with this area. We'll continue to monitor this as well as all areas throughout the tropics, but right now, not a lot going on at this point, but we'll keep you posted if that changes. We'll head now into the eastern Pacific, where things are certainly a little more active. We've got quite a hurricane here. Hurricane Pauline, centered at 13.9 north, 95.6 west. That puts the center about 135 miles south-southeast of Puerto Engel, Mexico. The winds 115 miles per hour, moving to the northwest at 6 miles per hour. The pressure 960 millibars. So pretty impressive indeed on our satellite view. We are seeing some deep convection here. It is over warm waters, so again, something to contend with here, and no doubt of immediate concern for interest in Mexico, with ultimately the potential for some heavy amounts of rain that could cause some problems there, and again, of course, the windy conditions too. But we'll continue to watch it. It could affect ultimately some of the same areas that were affected by Olaf, so again, it certainly bears watching. We do have a hurricane warning in effect at this point from Punta Maldonado back to Tapachula, so right in this area here, again, a hurricane warning is in effect. We also have been watching Olaf. It seems like it just will not go away. Centered at 15.4 north, 110.9 west. The center about 515 miles south of Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. The winds 35 miles per hour, moving off to the east at 6 miles per hour. So, and it's moving eastward, and the convection sort of coming and going. It continues to be sheared, and we'll continue to watch it, but again, right now it's not in a very favorable environment for development. Tropical Depression 3C, that's right here, 15.7 north, 154.9 west, centered about 270 miles south of Hilo, Hawaii. The wind's 30 miles per hour, and it is moving off to the west at 18 miles per hour. And you can see it here, can barely make it out on our satellite view. So again, we'll continue to watch this, but the biggest deal going on in the Pacific is certainly Hurricane Pauline, and we will keep you updated. What's coming up next, Dan?
Thanks, Christina. Across South